I'm Jimmy Rue, and I was with the 8th Air Force, Army Air Corps in World War II. And I was able to fly 35 missions with the greatest crew that ever flew. Our first mission was to Munich, and it was to drop bombs on an airfield. We would get up to our altitude with, say, 28 to 30,000 feet. We'd head for our target, and once we'd headed for the target, we would usually have fighter escort, and the P-51s particularly would be with us, and they would fly with us, and most of the time they'd go most of the way. Sometimes if we're going over as far as Mersburg or Leipzig in that general area, they couldn't quite go all the distance. And the fighters knew this, the enemy fighters knew this. And this is when you could always expect heavy attacks. When we had completed that first mission, it was what they called, they used to use the term milk run, meaning it was a real easy mission. And I thought that day, as I talked with the crew guys, I said, you know what? This combat stuff isn't bad at all. The next mission, mission number 2, I found out what combat was all about. On our second mission, when we were talking about it, we went to a place called Merkweiler, and that was supposed to have been a real easy mission. It turned out to be one of the toughest. Richard Anthony was flying his final mission. He had flown with us on our first mission, which would have been his 34th mission, and he flew with us. And then on the next mission, which was his last one, his plane was shot down, and I saw him bail out of his portion of the plane, and shortly after he opened his chute, German fighters, one of them, went and attacked him, or it appeared that, and it's an event that, of course, I've remembered over all these years. That's the thing that day that made it very definite that it was war. There were 2 main ways they would attack. They would attack from the sun, up in the sun, as they would dive at the oncoming bomber. And so they would attack either from the front or they would attack from the rear. And of course, if it was from the rear, that was my job to do what I could to discourage them. You had such mixed feelings at the time. You would you'd be thrilled to death that you got one of them. You got him out. But at the same time, there was a certain feeling that I can't really describe. It's just one of those things that you know you're taking somebody's life. It was on my 8th mission that I was wounded, and that's the result of the Purple Heart that I have now. My pilot that day said, Jimmy, come on out of the tail. And that's the only day that I disobeyed my pilot. I told him, I said, Bob, I'm not coming, because we were under possible fighter attacks, and I knew that we needed the protection at the tail just the same as anywhere else.
But you got your Purple Heart instead, like 60 years later, about 58 years later?
62 years later.
Okay.
Because there was no report made, medical report. But my crew, when we gathered together for a reunion, They said, Jimmy, you ought to have gone ahead and gotten that. And my wife and my children, they said, well, we're going to see what we can do. It was really when General John Johnston from Springfield, he said, Jimmy, we are going to get that Purple Heart. And he said, I'm personally am going to pin it on you. We had one time that I don't remember which mission it was.
Okay.
We came back in which they replaced both wings and the top of the tail section. We had had enough damage, and we had 2 engines out when we came back. And we had over 130 holes in the plane from the flak that particular day. But they brought that plane back. I tell you, there was no plane in all of the Air Force that was a better plane than the B-17. That plane could stay up and fly. You'd wonder how in the world they ever made it back. We loved that plane, Mercy.